is a tough one for me because my book is also about the pandemic. It is, I suppose, eerily relevant, although much more informed and smart people than me have written pieces about the differences between, AIDS and COVID. I think that there are also certainly some similarities that we can draw, at least emotionally, in terms of our emotional responses, be they fear or, rage at a government that is turning its back on sick people the way Reagan did and the way Trump has done. So I think that there are, some obvious similarities. And so I think for people who are, feeling alone or lost, looking at, like I said, when you can draw a line between the past and the present, I think it makes you feel less alone. It gives you a guide. And I think that, hopefully for readers out there reading a book about the way the queer community responded to what was happening with HIV/AIDS, would provide some, solace or inspiration or, you know, something that would make them feel less alone. I mean, there's no denying that what I was writing about it that was happening is hard, and what's happening now is hard. So I think the question is, how do we make young people feel less alone at a time like this? And art, I think, is always a way to make people feel less alone. It certainly was for me. I mean, I didn't grow up, at a time where AIDS was not a pandemic where you had to lock yourself in a room the way you do now with quarantine. But truthfully, I did lock myself in a room for a lot of my childhood, because I was so scared. I was scared of revealing myself. I was scared of who I was. And so my coping mechanism was just sitting in a room and reading and watching movies and listening to music. It was all art. So, I think that's something that through time is always going to, be a solace.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's the biggest challenge right now is that sense of isolation and that sense of disconnect, right, with other people. I know that, when things first hit, it was kind of like, okay, well, I won't take these papers from my office because I'll be back in a couple weeks time or whatever. And then it just kind of kept stretching on and on and on and on. And I think that's when the reality of it kind of hit, right? Um, and the fatigue of it, I think it's just more that sense of just, I think everyone's just really tired of having to deal with this, and understanding that it's still very much a problem. So you can't kind of, will it away. But it is that sense of isolation. And I think that sense of isolation is something that a lot of youth deal with. I know it's something that I certainly dealt with a lot because there was always, there was that stigma around your difference, right? It was that I could never feel free to be myself. And so even though I was very social and had friends and, I did all the things that, most young people do, I was still very alone inside because I was never truthful to who I was. I was never being sort of my authentic self. And that created, in some ways, like it only kind of heightens the isolation in some ways. Like even the idea of having like a queer mentor at that age, I don't know that I don't know how I would have been around if like there was an openly gay teacher in high school, like what my reaction would have been at that time. I probably would have stayed away. Like I think I would have appreciated that teacher at a much different stage in my life when I understood sort of what it took to be in front of a classroom and to be openly gay. But at the same time, I don't think I would have ever gone to that teacher and said anything, or the fear was too much, like for me personally. And I think it's that fear that does feed into that isolation. Books for me were a way that I could personally connect with people on a one-to-one basis. Like a book is a solitary experience because it's only like you reading it. It's not like you're in a movie theater or there's a bunch of you watching a television show. It's only like one reader at a time. But in a lot of ways, even though it's a solitary experience, it's one of those few experiences where it really does open you up, to all kinds of different scenarios and people and characters. And I know that was the one thing that helped me deal with the isolation that I was dealing with, was the sense that books were sort of a portal to a bunch of other realities that I never knew existed. So I think more than ever, like if youth can kind of turn to whatever, helps them with that isolation. And if it's not turning to their friends, if it's not turning to their parents for whatever reason, if there's some sort of an outlet like books, like any kind of outlet that gives them a sense of that they are not alone in this, because I think that's the greatest tragedy sometimes, is that we feel we're alone. And, to the point, that we're, when we're talking about Madonna and stuff, like I thought I was, but I didn't think I was alone in my love for Madonna, but I would have liked to have been able to talk to somebody about my love for Madonna at that age. So I think that the greatest tragedy is when we're alone, but there are so many other people that are alone too. We just don't know how to connect with them, and we don't know that they're out there too.
Yeah.